Hello and welcome to the Cash News Podcast, your go-to source for informative conversations about all things cash and currency. From cash security and payments technology to the cash supply chain, we're here to share insights on the issues shaping the world of cash today. Join your hosts, Tom Meehan, Shaun Ferrari, and Brad Moody as they dive into the latest trends, strategies, and technology. This is the Cash News Podcast. Now, here's Tom, Shaun, and Brad.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cash News Podcast. My name is Brad Moody. Glad to have everyone join. We have an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Tom Meehan in the house, as they say, the virtual house, if that. And then Shaun Ferrari, obviously joining us from his cabana in Miami. Shaun, thank you very much for joining, and I appreciate it. So, tell us, guys, what's going on? What's the good stuff
going on, everybody? Nice to say hello. Nice to chat with you this week. As Brad said, hanging out in Miami this week. We're doing a little pre-scoping for our November America's Cash Cycle seminar, where both Tom and Brad will be here. Gotta get the layout set, know where everybody's going to be, figure out all the fun stuff to do while we're down here too. So we're looking forward to that one. It's going to be a cool event. So for all those listeners that want to come, currencyresearch.com, get your pass now. Reach out to us. Love to see you in Miami.
And nothing better than being in Miami in August. That's
well, yeah. I mean, I walked around the block to see what was around here, and I was like, that's about as far as I'm going.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Mr. Meehan, what's going on with you, sir?
Well, it's good to be together, and actually, the good part about Miami is when we're going is the best time to be in Miami.
That's right.
When the show is, so it's when everybody else is cold. It'll be nice and warm, and Brad and I will both be there. We're looking forward to it. It's just it's the beginning of August, right? The summer is wrapping up. I think the world is an interesting place, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then what we're all doing, and I think. In the last couple of months, we've been out and about quite a bit. I know, Brad, you and I have been out quite a bit, so we've gotten a chance to see some folks, which is always good. Looking forward to November, and May, right? May and November are pretty close around, so two big shows in the U.S. that we'll both be at to talk about all the things that are going on. And other than that, I mean, It's wrapping up the summer. I would argue the summer is the same as everything else, right? We're always working, but anybody who has kids, right? Kids are back to school. Everybody's getting back into that routine.
Yeah, it is. I noticed this last year, and I'm starting to notice it again now that it's into August. But like, it definitely seems like the U.S. schedule has shifted to much more of a July, maybe late June, July. Summer, and then August, everybody seems to start going back earlier and earlier and gets shorter and shorter in terms of vacations, whereas Europe seems to kind of be on the August summer schedule. So it's interesting as it kind of adjusts. But yeah, it's been good. I've been traveling around in July, more on the personal level for vacations, but it's always fun to travel and see from our own professional interest what's going on in terms of payments all over the world, wherever we are. And as you say, there's a lot going on in the world. I went and spent a little time over in Europe as well this summer, and it was I definitely noticed the more of the uncomfort level maybe of traveling as a person that lives in the US. Just in terms of what's going on? What are you guys doing? Can you explain to us what's happening? And it's like, well, I can try.
It's interesting to say that I was at an event last Monday, and I met a group of Canadians from Montreal, and I was like, hey, we still welcome you. You guys are great. Thank you for coming to our country. And they were laughing about how it's a little nerve-wracking, from the foreigner perspective coming to the United States. So when you look at it from the opposite side, us going there, they even coming back, now, you may have a little bit of an accent. They were French Canadian. So it's kind of makes you wonder, how's that going How's that going to work next year for holiday season? Who's going where, why, and how? And look at the value of the dollar and how, what was it, 5 years ago when the US dollar was so down and the British pound was up and the euro was up? They all came here because it was cheap. It's going to be an interesting dynamic for sure.
Yeah, and we're seeing it even now as we talked about the upcoming Miami event in November. We get a lot of Latin American folks for that.
Yeah.
And I got an email last week from one of them that was kind of like, hey, we're hearing, there's all sorts of issues, and is it even safe for us to be coming to Miami? And it's like, yes, yeah, it's fine, but you don't know how say. I mean, yes.
No, but you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
But you don't know. But that's the thing. The way the news portrays it, or the way it's being portrayed in other countries, it makes it look scary, right? And it's just another thing that people have to contend with. And for the May event, that's a big global event, right? At their global banknote conference, we normally get 60-ish central banks to attend from all over the world, right? That's another interesting one where it's, start your visa process 6 months in advance, and let's get on it. So I mean, it's going to be interesting as we go through the next year to see how the international market does continue to come to the U.S. Or not. So yeah.
Well, when you were in Bangkok, what was it a point of conversation, or was it kind of just?
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a point of conversation. I mean, a lot of folks. Again, it's kind of that a lot of the conversations is coming at it from a. Can you explain what's happening? They're looking just to some knowledge about, like, can you make sense of it? Which, and I, unfortunately, like, not really, no. But by and large, my thing is, look, for who we're talking about and the type of events, and like in the Bangkok event, right? It's, you're talking about central bankers, you're talking about currency professionals, involved in the supply chain. By and large, that's not a concern of comings and goings to the country. You should be completely fine. But again, that's not the way it's necessarily portrayed out there. So it's an interesting environment for sure. And I think, as being going to the other countries, it is a bit more to kind of like your example, Brad, you kind of feel obligated to be like, yeah, you're definitely, from my perspective, please come. You're welcome. Like come and
Statue of Liberty is still there.
Yeah, you kind of feel you want to apologize, but then you're like, I don't really know what I'm apologizing for. It's a whole, like, it's an interesting world right now.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, anyway, I think that the interesting world piece is, we all travel a lot, right? Like, so, and I think we have a different perspective a lot of times. So sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, right? Like, and from my point of view, some of it is just talk.
Yeah.
Like, some of it that I see is just talk. It's not anything more than, people just talking about what it shoulda, coulda, this is what I feel type of thing. And then when you break it down, you realize, like, this isn't actually as big of a deal as it sounds. But the new, what I think you kind of said a couple times, like, what people think, it isn't necessarily real. It isn't actually what's occurring sometimes. So, and then on the other side, it is real. So you're going like, oh man, did that just happen? So I think we are in this very interesting time. Not that this is anything good, right? This shouldn't make any of us feel better. I'm not sure we're worse than anybody else. That's the crazy thing.
Right.
Like, the crazy thing is it doesn't feel like, to me, when I look at things, that we're in a terrible scenario. What I see is the same kind of stuff everywhere, which, again, shouldn't make anybody who's watching the podcast say, like, hey, that's better. But the world in general is facing some stuff, right? Like it's just going through some stuff everywhere. And when we sit down and really think about it, the reality is that this is kind of, there's turmoil everywhere, there's political challenges everywhere, there's conflict. So is hopefully, and I hate to use this term because it feels very much like the COVID-esque term of like, is this the new normal? Is this actually what we're going to expect for the next few years? And there is a part of me that says, yes, this is what, this is what is occurring.
The noise, right? That's
Yeah.
Well, on the cash side of things,
yeah. Now we're all depressed. Thanks, Tom.
Noise and turmoil generally spur on cash growth. So, I think, and I know there's this is just my perspective. I know there's development on the stablecoin front. Genius Act was passed. All that stuff, matters. And stablecoins are becoming more and more I was going to say significant, but I don't know that they've reached significance yet in terms of transactional volume. But they're becoming more and more a thing that can be used. That said, I would still, given all the uncertainty and turmoil going on out there, I would still put a weight on the continued growth of cash because of that and some other reasons. But anyway, it's my own crystal ball.
You talk about growth of cash. We were talking before, about the amount of circulation of currency in circulation. It's up. Cash usage is down, but the amount of currency in circulation as a storage of value is up, right? And even though consumers in the U.S. are holding less in their wallets and less in their accounts, there's still a lot more currency that's being created and in circulation. So, not to quote the famous commercial from the 80s of Wendy's, but where's the beef? But where's the cash? But at the same time, people are still using notes for under $25 purchases. That's great. Perfect. Debit card usage, consistent, right? Talked earlier also, credit card usage is up staggeringly, right? So as everything else floats up and down to 1%, 1% variance, credit card usage increased dramatically, which is a little concerning when you look at in the highest market of the people with income over $150,000, the credit card usage increased 2% last year, which seems like 2%, who cares, right? But at the other side of it is 2%, the closest iteration of that was 1% and 1% before that, right? Or 2% before that. So as credit card usage comes up, that means our debt's getting higher and a higher to income ratio families. So what's their plan to have money? If are they using it for, points and things like that as a benefit? I'll be the first to say, yep, I charge it and I go to my phone and I pay it off immediately, right? That's just, I do both of those things because why not earn the points? Is that what people are doing? It's a great question. I'm glad to hear what the Payment Choice Coalition independent survey is going to come out to say. So.
Yeah.
Good.
No, go.
I was going to say, I think since as long as we've all known each other, because we all, I would say that, Shaun, I can remember literally 5 years ago having this conversation of that the way people interact, the way people shop has changed, right? And COVID accelerated that change with contactless payment and all of these other things. So there's no doubt about that there's a difference in the way people use payments, but there's also never been a successful cashless society exercise because it just doesn't make sense. So I think that's consistently what we talk about. And whether you use the diary study or something the Payment Choice Coalition is that the idea here is just to remind people of that there is I think we talk about unbanked all the time, but we don't talk about an aging population and some of the other things that impact it. We also don't talk about just the right to pay the way you want to pay, right? Like, hey, this is the system that we created. How do we make sure we utilize it? So it's definitely changing, but money in circulation it has not changed dramatically. If anything, it's increasing.
Yeah. No, I mean it's that whole like the share of payments goes down, but the pie of payments gets bigger, right? So like even though you've got a smaller share, your people are making more and more payments, whether that's in dollar value or just number of payments. I think is interesting. I think the other interesting piece is you're right. I mean, Tom, it's a good point. I mean, there hasn't been a country out there that the Scandinavian countries are the closest you can get to it that have tried to actually get rid of cash and go electronic. And you can get to some point, but there's a percentage of transactions and a percentage of the population that will continue to use cash, and you need to support it via an infrastructure. And that I think is where we had a discussion about that at our event in Bangkok a couple months ago, where it was like, okay, how do you put in legislation or regulations to not only require cash to be accepted, maybe there's a threshold value or something like that, but to not only require the acceptance, but also to require the infrastructure providers or banks even to support it, right? Saying, no, you can't get out of this business. We have to find a way to stay in it, whether you're an armored carrier or a bank or a vendor.
You gotta support it.
Yeah, there has to be a critical mass, if you will, of good to support this industry. And in a market like the US that isn't so much of a problem yet, maybe on the acceptance piece, which I think we were having a good discussion before this actually about what we're seeing on the acceptance side, but from a volume of notes out there and churning through the system, there's still a lot of banknotes out there, and the industry is still there to support it. Whereas some countries are seeing that number get smaller and smaller, and consolidation of things like armored carriers or even banks, as that gets smaller and smaller and that footprint gets smaller and smaller, when you're down to one or two, and that one or two decides, we don't want to do this anymore, well, then you have a problem.
Well, I'm wondering, just as from an engineering opportunities level instead of volume level, right? So, you were saying before the call, I was just in Nashville, and this little food hall, there was roughly, 50 independent little, areas that you could get food. It was awesome. It's great, right there off Broadway. Don't accept $1. You cannot spend $1, but you can go to the ATM and grab cash, right, at a $10 surcharge. But to be able to get cash, to not be able to use it, in other words. So my question was, at what point does that, where they say the direct usage of less cash is being used, does that count the opportunities that you can't spend the cash because you have to use a credit card or a debit card? Meaning, if I go to attempt to use cash and they don't accept it, that shouldn't go towards the other category. Does that make sense? Because I want to spend cash, but you won't accept it. So where is that captured in this metric of the declining usage of cash going from 16 to 14%, when the category of who all wants to say, yes, cash, I'm going to always use cash in some capacity, last year was 92%. So everybody wants to have the ability to use it, right, as a freedom payments choice. Retailers, banks, and credit card companies obviously want to try to get rid of cash because it's messy or whatever their belief is. But if the people say, hey, yeah, I want to be able to use opportunity to use this cash, how do we change that metric to where it doesn't show a false negative? Or did I just blow your mind by just
No,
putting too much math in there?
I think I know I think I know what you're saying. It's a bit of a mental
Right.
puzzle.
You're taking away the opportunities, so it shouldn't count in the metric.
Yeah. So there was something who there is I was flipping through the Fed's summary of survey and diary of consumer payment choice from last year, and they do have this one stat. I'm trying to wrap this into what you were just talking about, where they looked at the shares of cash payments made at locations accepting card payments, which isn't exactly what you're saying. It was because you're talking about places that don't accept.
Yeah, you can't use cash, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that wouldn't be captured.
It's a weird measure. It's just,
here.
Again, it's noodle on that one. And I just finished reading The Power of Cash. I suggest if there are other nerds that are out there that don't want to really, learn something. I thought it was interesting how the book itself, through study and through evidence, right, it shows that it's not a security issue. It is a national security issue when you can't use cash. And, we always like to, compare to hurricanes. And I've spent too much of my career worrying about hurricanes and predictive and business resiliency and everything else. But what happens when the power goes out for an extended period of time? You can't use cash. You're based off of where does my card plug in that when there's no power? So what's the redundancy factor there? Being able to where a $5 hammer becomes $50 because nobody else has change. Tom mentioned a while ago and a couple of podcasts ago that you can't go take a family of 4 out to dinner for under $150, $200 now. So you're having to carry larger bills because you don't want the George Costanza wallet, right, where it's this thick. So I think a natural tendency is to want to just spend card. And what New York is doing and has passed with the $500 limit, right, I think makes sense, right, from a state standpoint. So there's got to be a price fix equilibrium in there. There's got to be an agreement. Be very curious to see what the smart people on the Hill are going to be determining.
Yeah, I think it's we talked about this. I think in some regulation standpoint. I mean, it's particularly in the U.S. where a lot of things are left up to the states to decide, and that's why we have this patchwork of things right now and different regulations. But if that does make its way up to more of a federal regulation, I don't know what it would be. Is it a $500 limit? Is it a couple $1,000 limit? Is it I don't know. Who knows? There was that was another interesting thing. There was I forgot the country, but they were sitting on the panel again back in Bangkok that we had, and they were talking about not only how do you require the infrastructure to be there and require acceptance and so forth, but also how do you then almost start having to require a denomination mix. So you go down this like slippery slope pretty quickly, because you can't all of a sudden say, because of the logistics reasons, everybody wants hundreds because it's just easier. There's few of them. You don't need the Costanza wallet. Things are more expensive, so we just push hundreds out to everybody. Well, that's fine, but then you can't make change if you don't.
Right. If you use it for $10,
if you don't require 5s and 10s and 20s to go out along with it. So how do you do you go all the way down where you're saying, hey, if you're a financial institution or a retailer, or you could go all the way down to a customer at the ATM if you wanted to, I guess, and say, X% of your withdrawal has to be 5s or this denomination. I mean, it goes down this at some point you get there where you're like,
well, that's what the cash usage is on things under $25, right? That's anything above that, it's a card. It's just an inflationary kind of bartering type system of the network being down, that when things become critical and overinflated. But
and then where does we didn't bring up coin, but then where does the C word come into this, right? I mean, so
the C word, the dreaded C word.
So then you've got to, do you have to make change all the way down? And some people would say yes, absolutely. I mean, there's a segment of the population, potentially a large one, isn't going to be okay with. Yeah, you don't have to give me that 50 cents. I don't care.
I don't want the 50 cents.
Well, I know there's I don't either, but that's
yeah. Well, good conversation.
that was actually there's a company out there who will be in Miami and Bali for those interested in our Asia Cash Cycle seminar. I'll just plug that one while I'm at it. In September, who is thinking about ways of actually taking the change you're going to get, the coin that you would get, and instead of issuing it in physical coin, issuing it onto the blockchain as some sort of stablecoin-ish type digital wallet thing as a way
those that have accounts?
What's that?
You'd have to have an account, right? So
you'd have to have an account somewhere. Yeah, you'd have to sign up for the service. Sure. But as a way of dealing with, you can pay in cash. You can get cash bills back if you want to.
Right.
But what you don't want to get back will automatically go onto your wallet.
Well, you definitely don't want to have seen in vaults in Jamaica where they have coin coming out of their ears because everyone uses it, but there's zero value in it, so nobody ever orders it. Right? It's only a method of deposit. So it's an interesting conflict. I prefer it's not a plug for Acorn. I just recently signed up for an Acorn account using it through my debit card. Holy cow! It adds up to quite a bit of balance after a while for doing nothing. We're rounding up to the next dollar. It's fantastic. Not to plug Acorn, but we'd be happy that they'd be a sponsor of the Cash News podcast. But it's interesting, right? And with debit card being such a huge usage of payments, maybe it is a method of forced saving.
Yeah, I do think it is one of those things. Like, I didn't think of it that much until now. I see, my kids getting older and going through high school, and there's not a lot. I don't know about, maybe it's just Fairfax County. I don't know. But there's not a lot of education out there about ways of payment.
No.
At all. And it's probably something that would be useful for folks to know, like, this is actually what a debit card is. This is what basic stuff. This is what a debit card is. It ties to a checking account. It does it. This is a credit card. This is how it's different. It's kind of that life skills piece that is now when you throw stablecoin and everything else in there, good Lord. It would be a really interesting course, along with, by the way, on a separate rant, along with AI and how to use it responsibly and what it means.
Yeah,
but anyway,
now Tom's interested.
No, I think everything kind of molds together, right? I think one of the biggest things I always think about is that we talk about all of this stuff. It is interconnected, right? It really is. It might not always seem like it, and then throwing the AI mix in it is like, okay, how do we make it easier, right? Like, AI is about that. I want to back up quite a bit though, like Shaun, and I know we only have about 2 minutes left before we have to go. But you started to talk about stablecoin, and like, what are you hearing? Because I know there's, again, not to get into politics, there's been some changes that didn't exist before, and I still think people don't understand crypto well enough to understand that it was stablecoin isn't a CDBC. It isn't the same as traditional crypto. So what are you hearing in your travels?
I'd like to say that I'm seeing the understanding of it get picked up, but not measurably. I think for those that are talking about it, and those involved in the stablecoin or the crypto industry, there's been a lot of developments with the Genius Act and so forth, and some regulations that are in place and that sort of thing. but I don't think even that, I could be wrong. But I don't know if you're not really, again, if you're not in that sphere, if it really has trickled outside of it into like a larger standpoint. I thought what could be a game changer was, it sounded like, and I think it's just still in development, so I mean it still could be a game changer for sure. I just haven't heard much about it in the past month or two, but it sounded like a lot of the large institutions in the US, the Zelle members basically, right, were coming together and forming or wanting to form a stablecoin that Zelle was creating. In my mind, that could have been that would be something that, I mean, essentially, if you had top 10, 20 banks or more than that are involved in the Zelle platform all get together and say, we are trading this stablecoin. Well, okay. Now you've got financial institutions
backing,
issuing a stablecoin that, if there was a problem with it, you would argue that the Fed would probably have to back it up. I mean, you would have systemic risk at that point. That you would.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what would happen if the swap rate went way high and now money's worth more as a deposit than it is in circulation?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that stablecoin could have an impact, right?
Sure.
Because now,
I mean,
as a bank, you want to put it back. I want money on as an interest.
Deposit. No, I mean, if you could get interest from it and swap it, sure. I think the other interesting piece would be, given interest rates are going up, or in fact they're up now. I mean, I think it's, is there a world where there's more talk about interest earning stablecoin?
Sure.
Maybe the stablecoin itself earns interest. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, so there's still a lot of talk. There's still, right. Is it that anything is out there right now that's like, yes, I mean, yeah, I mean, USDC and Circle, they're where in those niche markets where they're functioning, they seem to be successful and have good traction. But again, I haven't seen a stat to say what percentage it is of any sort of payment. I don't have it on the top of my head, but it's very small. So yeah.
All right, well, we killed that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tom, parting comments?
No, I think it's good to be together. I'm thinking we should get back together and talk a little bit more about the stablecoin piece, because I think there's a lot more to dive into. And then, I think we'll do this again in a couple of weeks, and that's it.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening. It's been a pleasure chatting with each of you today. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please like, subscribe, download, do whatever it is, wherever it is you do it.
Do all that stuff.
Do all that stuff with the podcast. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you out there soon and chatting with you again in the coming weeks.
Yeah, awesome. Good to see everybody. Talk soon.
Right, great to see you.
Thanks for listening to the Cash News Podcast. We hope you found this episode insightful. Don't forget to like and review us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter, and be sure to visit us at thecashnews.com to stay up to date with the latest on the world of cash. Thanks again for listening to the Cash News Podcast.